the January 6th Commission exists. It got media attention. There is, I think, this sort of a self-hating, masochistic tone in a lot of the coverage, though. Not the coverage, but like the columns about it, the take industry, where no matter how compelling something is from January 6th, the test is, well, there's a Trump voter in a Waffle House who's not going to find this interesting, so this isn't real. Whereas a ad that is bashing somebody for saying you should free some nonviolent prisoners, well, this might affect the guy who voted for Biden, but also eats in a Waffle House, so that is real. And so I think that Democrats are having a problem convincing people that all of this, I mean, I don't know what the climate would be if inflation was at 2%, but I'm not sure it would be that different because, yes, there are various economic problems, but if you go back to other midterms that held under conditions like gas has been higher for people in some elections that the incumbent party did fine in, interest rates were higher. Like in 1974, inflation was double digits. I mean, it's never hit double digits under Biden. It hit double digits under Nixon. Under and like Democrats were able to like do it. There were incumbents who were able to win in those years. I think the media environment is the new thing, and Republicans have a very effective operation that when there are things that are real, I mean, it is real. Like people don't like having to pay more for something than they did 2 years ago. But the idea that is a crisis that you just need to flip the blue switch to red and that will fix it. That is, I think, a function of the media dominance of the right, because there's not like I can't tell you what the Republican plan to fight inflation is. And I can tell you some of the ideas that they propose are things that when they're tried in other countries, like what just happened in the UK, when somebody says, all right, in this moment of inflation, we're going to cut taxes. Markets say, wait, no, that's wrong. That is the opposite. That will actually increase inflation.
Yes. More money in.
Yeah, no, that's a thing that I think this media environment does. And I'm not saying, poor, helpless Democrats. Just that is a thing about political coverage that somebody who joined a startup to do different coverage. I think that's something that people rightly find annoying, is that the conversation is not what is this plan, how will it affect inflation. It is why are Democrats losing in the polls? Why are Democrats not being taken seriously? And the question you see is, hey, you're a Democrat. Why should they vote for Joe Biden, given that inflation is up? And there's no contrasting of like, what are you going to do? What were their plan? What Republican plan do? But again, the reality is Democrats have been I think the problem is they said that this is transitory. It wouldn't be a huge issue. Right. They've identified some problems. They fixed some problems, but that they were overconfident. I mean, if you asked a Democrat a year ago, would inflation be 8% by the election? They would think no, because of all the of the way that the supply chains were going to be fixed, and they were. Inflation was still up. But some of it, you got to feel, I mean, I said you don't have to feel sorry for Democrats. Sometimes I do, because what's the Fed doing to fight inflation? Is raising interest rates. What did that result in? Oh, now you have campaign ads saying mortgages are higher than ever.
Right. Rents and rents are too.
More rent. Things like that.
I mean, I guess, and I certainly was one of those people who a year ago did not think that this inflation would be as durable. But I also still contend, when you look at the inflation numbers from around the globe, that this is not a function of monetary inflation, where we have too much demand. We have gone through like a worldwide shock to supply lines, and in addition to having obviously a war going on, and that story, it seems to me they've been a little bit late in feeling like they needed to address that like make it clear that like we're going through this, but there's only so many umbrellas to hand out when it's raining. What's happening now is not a function of policy or absence of policy, or at least one that can be addressed so quickly. And part of it, I think, is we have a problem in expressing what inflation is, because there's, we have, again, monetary inflation where there's just too much money sloshing around for the number of goods. or we have inflation that is a function of supply lines. Like, I use this example all the time. Like, you don't go down to parts in Florida where Hurricane Ian is hit and say, like, we have inflation because bottles of water are now selling for twice as much as they did before before we got hit with this hurricane, or that, sandbags are more expensive. No, it's because there was a massive sort of like disaster that we weren't quite in a position to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, then we're seeing the return of this talking point you saw when Obama was president, which was when you took over, gas was this much, and now it's this much. And it's like, well, what happened in between, January 2009 and November 2012? There was a global recession, and it ended, and demand came back. Same thing happened this time, and so. Again, I'm not trying to like do advertising for Democrats, but like Biden will say something like gas prices are coming down. Republicans will say, yes, but they were lower a year and a half ago. The point is that they're coming down in the last few weeks, and you see Democrats trying to reach and grab reality. I think an overall problem, and I was talking to Bernie Sanders about this, which is going to be up in Semaphore today. His idea is that Democrats just need to shift the conversation with an actual policy, which is we need to say inflation is the fault in part of companies taking advantage of the moment, keeping prices high and getting profits. So we need a windfall profits tax. And he was saying Republicans will never do that. It's you can outflank them on that because they're going to say inflation's bad. You can say, well, we should tax, just Shell doubled its profits. We should tax that. And what is the Republican response going to be? Some version of it's Biden's fault. But they're not doing that. This White House doesn't do that. There are candidates who do it. There are candidates who don't because they have a pollster who say, well, people don't believe that and you get into this Ouroboros of, the news cycle and the Fox News existing. Well, our polls tell us that voters don't believe that because they've heard that inflation is Biden's fault. So some of them, they can't change the conversation, but I keep mentioning the UK situation because they're also, capital has the ability to strike and change policy. Like it does it in South America all the time, does it around the world, just did it in the UK. And every government that is at all progressive, at all leftist, not this is a leftist government, but is trying something that is shifting the balance of the economy and trying to take more from the wealthy. There are things that like companies can do, and we've seen that in a few cycles. I mean, the version of this when Obama was president is, these businesses are not investing much because they're uncertain about the tax picture. What they want is a very favorable regime where they make lots of money and their taxes are low, and they can protest when that's not happening. You and I can talk about that, and people can post about that. That's not the Democratic message. And what is the issue there? Is there a reason why Democrats can't blame corporations very clearly for raising prices? I was talking around it. I think it's just they're not in a vacuum. They're in a media environment where they're one voice shouting that, and 99 voices are saying it's because you passed the Inflation Reduction Act. That's what did it. I don't know how much you quote Ross Douthat on the show, but I do think a point he made that was right is like Biden at the start of his presidency delivered on reversing some of the Trump border policies and ending the Keystone Pipeline. If you look at the actual Biden immigration policy since then, it's been pretty strict. If you look at the energy policy, it's been much more liberal in terms of granting leases than what he ran on or what any Democrat ran on. But because those people remember those and Republicans talk about those, the Republican message is, why is your gas cost more? Well, this one time, remember when Biden canceled the Keystone Pipeline? Remember when Biden canceled the Keystone Pipeline? Repeat 5 million times. And that I don't know if Democrats have the ability to say, well, actually, it's this not even that complicated set of factors. Actually, it's gouging. Why can't they say it's gouging? It's not that he canceled this pipeline. Why can't they say it's the Saudis? Because there's another thing I talked about with Sanders. It's the Saudis cutting the supply. That's the reason it did it. That's true. Like OPEC cutting the supply is a reason that gas prices went up. The war in but I don't have all the answers here because I'm saying this is stuff that is true that Democrats could talk about. They don't. Is it their fault because they're just bad at politics, which is an argument, or is that like they just can't? They're just like trapped under glass, banging on the glass underwater because the conservative messaging is so good that they can't break through. I think it's a combination. They're both bad and it's hard.
It may be hard, but we would have been able to assess that if the Democrats had attempted to do it in earnest, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Warnock on 2 separate occasions in his debate with Walker mentioned corporate profits, but it was like almost an afterthought. Like, I mean, if you're going to message it, you've got to message it and you've got to really hit it. And again, if Warnock's the only one doing it, then it's a problem. But if you have 25, Democratic senators going out there and saying this every day, and you have House leaders and Senate leaders talking about corporate profits, if Biden, was to bring in the CEOs of, 20 of these companies and go, you guys are gouging. There's no way that you should be making record profits in this situation. Like, that's a concerted effort. If that doesn't work at that point, then I think, we have solved that riddle as to, is it that they're bad at politics or there's a bad media environment? But they never attempted to do it. And
not consistently. You're right. They would say it. And sometimes because I watch the debates and I watch the ads, I'll think, well, they actually did it. People are not giving, but you need to do it consistently. Where I
you need to message
don't finish
it.
a sentence without saying my opponents want to defund the police. Yeah,
exactly.